Hi, my name is Nathan. I go by Peteparker on a lot of the sites that I use, and every week I get to buy comic books as long as I review them online, so that's what I aim to do. This review is about Amazing Spider-Man number 658. Here's, I believe, the first cover in his series with him in the FF uniform, the Future Foundation uniform. So let's get into it. This is written by Dan Slott, I believe. Let me make sure. Yep, Dan Slott, and art by Javier Pulido. Colors by Muntisa Vicente and Javier Rodriguez. This is kind of weird. If you're following Peter Parker's transition into the Future Foundation, which you probably are, you got, how does it really go? I believe in the last Fantastic Four issue, they talk about how they asked Spider-Man to be in the team. No, that was actually in this last Amazing Spider-Man, how they asked him to join the team. And then in FF, he shows up and they give him the costume, and he goes out and starts out with them. So this is kind of placed in a weird spot. I believe this comic takes place after FF number 1, and FF number 1 comes between 657 and 658. I think that's how it goes, because it's really interesting. He's with Carly Cooper, his new girlfriend du jour or whatever, and he sees the new Fantastic Flare. I don't know what they call it. They can't call it Freedom Flare. Whatever it is, it's in the new configuration. It went off, so he has to ditch his girlfriend, but she has to ditch him at the same time, so it's not a big deal. And then he races over to the to Horizon Labs, where his labs are, to grab a uniform, because that's where he keeps all his uniforms, and then goes over to the Baxter Building. Interesting thing about the uniforms, we see here that the black box that he's been keeping his uniforms in, his Spidey costumes, originally when I first saw it, I could swear it was no bigger than like a kind of a bread box, kind of a wall-safe thing where it was specifically coded to his DNA or something like that. And he could open it up and he threw, a costume in there. In this book, it is a walk-in closet, more or less. It's like floor to ceiling, got a sealed door on it, and he's got like a rack of Spider-Man costumes, especially the latest 4 that he's been wearing. The regular costumes in there, the black costume, the new stealth costume, the new armored costume, and that's all you see at the time. So that seems crazy to me. Like, not only are you just keeping one at your lab in your black box, but you're keeping all the ones that make you obviously Spider-Man. One you could play off maybe as, I really like Spider-Man, I think it's cool, or I once got this from him or something, right? But if you have every costume, especially the ones that he's only like worn one time in the news recently, you're definitely Spider-Man if somebody finds that. So maybe that's a plot point later on, I don't know. But the black box is gigantic here all of a sudden. So not only that, but and I was all set when I first saw this cover to complain about yet another Spider-Man costume in less than, there's been 4 at least in less than a month. So, but I was all right with this one because I thought that the Future Foundation costume is generally what he's going to stick with from here on out. But I don't think that's true. First off, maybe it's just the wonderful artwork. I have to say that I had mentioned it in the last review, but it bears mentioning again. This artwork is kind of a retro style. It's kind of a throwback to the old comic book style, merged with kind of new colors, which are wonderful, and a new format kind of thing. So it's really cool. I really like it. And I think I have kind of I lean towards liking semi-cartoonish but still kind of realistic comic artists, and that's really what this is. Simple lines, a lot of color detail. It's really good. They called it the FF flare signal, if you're keeping track. So he shows up, which seems completely out of character, in a Fantastic Four costume that he had made specifically because he was under the impression, it seemed like, that he was joining the Fantastic Four. And there's a bit of humor in there, and you kind of understand it, but instantly the rest of the Fantastic Four are kind of upset about it, especially the kids, like Franklin mentions it. And Ben explains that they retired the colors and those costumes out of respect for Johnny. And then Spider-Man's all upset that he can't wear the Fantastic Four costume. So that doesn't seem like Peter Parker to me. I mean, if anybody understands death and loss and respect for that situation, it would be him. And it would seem like if they already gave him this white costume, the last thing that he would go and do is have another costume made of what they were wearing before and wear it to work or wear it to them. That just seems... It's a cool picture. I mean, it really is. I mean, and we get another picture for the site and another costume for Spider-Man, which I swear all these costumes are, part of the... It's either the artist and the writer really love putting Spider-Man in new costumes since he hasn't been in new costumes for a long time, or it's like a marketing thing where it's the perfect thing to pick up in video games, or video games is what I think of, special versions of the character, costume after costume after costume. But it's beautiful. It just seems so not like Peter Parker in general, who has dealt with a lot of loss and everything. Nevertheless, he ends up getting put into the white costume, and they set off on their merry way of their first adventure, which is very Fantastic Four-ish. It's very good that way. There's a problem where holes from other dimensions are popping up in 3 different places, and they're all related, and then the whole team has to go and figure this out and close them just in time, of course. So the first hole is in Paris. They go to Paris. They have some fun adventures there that are really cool. The new FF vehicle kind of looks like the old bathtub, but it looks completely different also. So I wonder if they're going to use that same style of vehicle in the FF series too. It'll be interesting to see if it's actually moves through like that. And then the second hole is in the microverse, which leads directly to a behind-the-scenes villain that's watching them enter and leave the microverse and gets the secret for leaving the microverse. I believe he's been stuck there forever, if not for a long time. That would be Psycho Man. He's going to come around again. I never really understood how difficult it is to beat Psycho Man, because all he has is that little machine that makes people feel those 3 feelings or something like that. But I'm sure they'll do something with it, something cool. I did like the scene in the Baxter building where Dragon Man is being left in charge of the kids, and he's trying to put them to bed, and they're going nuts, writing all the different variations of Herbie over the years. I did an article on Herbie and looked at all of his appearances, and just about all of the major versions of Herbie are actually in here. There was a little bit of confusion as to who, I don't know if you can see it, but this person is right here, who's saying, "Come on, Artie, you're making me look bad here." You kind of figure out later on based on the powers that are displayed later on, but I didn't really realize that all of the kids were going to be getting the same costumes as the regular Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. Apparently everybody that's in the FF is going to be all wearing those costumes at some point. So the other really cool part, I've seen this a lot in artwork that you hang on the wall or whatever, optical illusions, but they actually worked an optical illusion into the book, and those are Baxter buildings all put together, and this is the far distant future. I believe it's the year 3 million, something like that. And it's said to exist in different parts of space and time at the same time. It's really cool to look at. I mean, I've seen the illusion before, but it's kind of cool that it's in a comic book, and it kind of works to be futuristic and sciencey. And it's cool to look at because kind of blows your mind a little bit, as usual. They meet a group of future FF members, and they help them start to fix whatever the problem is in the future. And so it's partway through the story. They don't exactly complete anything, Carly Cooper's on her own adventure too at the same time, and I'm sure those will meet up at some point. They mentioned the Wraith in there, so we'll see. I don't really know or care about who the Wraith is. I think who does it remind me of? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I didn't really pay much attention to that. I read it, but put it in the back. The artwork is really worth the money that you're putting down, I believe. Yep, $3.99 on this. I think it's worth it. It's really good. It's interesting, the dynamic between Peter Parker and the Fantastic Four. I don't necessarily agree with the giant black box full of every Spider-Man costume that Spider-Man has ever worn, or him being so insensitive as to wear the Fantastic Four uniform for 5 seconds in their face or whatever. But overall, I think this book is really good. I'm glad to finally be back to being on Spider-Man. Despite him not being married and older and a teacher anymore, it's still cool what they're doing from this side of things, from the Spider-Man side of things, integrating the FF. And while I don't expect that team up to last very long, as they mention, he's busy being on the Avengers and the Fantastic Four now, and on his solo series. It's like he's all over the place, of course, but it's cool. It's worth your money. I hesitate to give it a 5 out of 5 because I wasn't exactly blown away by the story, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was super fun. I thought the artwork was great, so that's what I'm going to give it, 5 out of 5. Check out my other reviews, which I will be completing shortly, on marvel.wikia.com, and they're also posted at iFanboy, or you can follow me on YouTube to check them all out. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.